The evidence that Hitler committed. What weight of evidence have you got now to actually balance that argument?
Somebody died in the bunker, but I don't think it was Hitler. We have the testimony from a Warsaw court of the pilot who flew them out.
For many years, people were told that Hitler died inside a bunker in Berlin. That was the story everyone believed. Burned bodies, secret talks, and a quick cleanup. But what if that story was not true? Now, people like Gerrard Williams are starting to speak up and show a different side. What really happened in those last days? Why would powerful people want to keep it quiet? And if Hitler didn't die there, where then did he go? This new truth is hard to ignore. Join us in this video as we reveal the details. Gerrard Williams reveals the truth about Hitler's death. For a really long time now, almost 80 years, in fact, most people all around the world have been told the same story about what happened to Adolf Hitler. They've heard it again and again, in books, in school lessons, on the news, in movies, and just about everywhere else. And the story goes like this. Hitler died inside a dark underground bunker in the city of Berlin near the end of World War II. That was back in April of 1945. The story says he swallowed poison, something called cyanide, and at the same time, he also shot himself with a gun. Then, right after that, his close followers, the people still loyal to him, burned his body so no one could recognize it. And that, the world was told, was the end. Nothing more to say. Case closed. But what if it wasn't? What if that story, no matter how many times it was repeated, wasn't actually the full truth? What if something much different really happened, and we just never knew, because the truth was hidden or ignored? A man named Gerrard Williams, who worked for many years as a war reporter and also as an investigator, didn't just accept the story everyone else did. He started asking questions. He followed clues. He looked at old files. He listened to people who had been ignored. And what he found made him start to wonder if the story that everyone has believed for decades might not be true at all. Gerrard Williams learned something very important. The people who said they saw bodies being carried out of that bunker in Berlin, they probably did see bodies. That part might be true. But the big question, the one that really matters is, was one of those bodies actually Hitler's? Or was it someone else entirely? And once you ask that question, a lot of things start to fall apart. When it comes to the death of someone as important and terrible as Adolf Hitler, you'd expect there to be strong proof, real proof, solid, clear, and tested proof. But there wasn't, not even close. There was no public autopsy. No doctors from around the world were allowed to look at the body. Nobody did an independent check. There was no clear photo. There were no bones shown to the public that could be matched for sure to Hitler. For the longest time, the only physical thing that was ever shared with the world was a piece of a skull and some small bits of teeth. And those were given by just one country, the Soviet Union. The same Soviet Union that took over Berlin in 1945 and was the only group of people who had access to the place where Hitler supposedly died. But even that one piece of proof, that skull, didn't hold up. Because many years later, in 2009, something surprising happened. A team of scientists from America tested the skull using something called DNA. That's the special information inside our bodies that tells us who we are. And the test showed something shocking. That piece of skull, it didn't belong to Hitler. In fact, it didn't even belong to a man at all. It came from a woman under the age of 40. That meant the skull couldn't be his. Not even maybe. Not even close. That single discovery changed everything. Or at least, it should have. Because now, the only piece of evidence the world had been given to prove Hitler died wasn't even real. But somehow, the story stayed the same. Most people didn't hear about the DNA test. History books didn't change. News shows didn't talk about it. The world kept telling the same story it always had, like nothing happened. Gerrard Williams wasn't the first person to ask questions about Hitler's death, but he was one of the few people who looked very closely. reading every file he could find, talking to every witness who would speak, and going to the places that most people didn't want to visit. And what he found, over and over again, was the same thing. The story just didn't add up. If it was just a prank or a random glitch, why did things start getting even stranger the more people looked into it? Stay tuned for more details. The secrets that still linger. Almost everything we know about Hitler's death came from two kinds of people. First, there were people who worked very closely with Hitler, people who would do anything for him and follow his orders no matter what. Second, there were people who had been caught and were prisoners of the Soviet army, and those people were under a lot of pressure to say the right thing. They were scared, and they were being watched very closely, so their words might not have been truthful either, and even those stories didn't match. Some people said Hitler shot himself. Others said he only used poison. Some said his whole body was burned until nothing was left. Others said it was barely burned at all. And yet, even with all those differences and disagreements, historians still decided to write the ending like it was 100% true. They took all those shaky stories and made them sound like facts. And here's another strange part. Big world leaders back then, people like Joseph Stalin and even US President Eisenhower, also didn't believe Hitler had died in the bunker. Stalin said more than once that he thought Hitler had escaped. Most people laughed it off and said it was just Cold War propaganda. But still, if everything was so certain, why would powerful leaders say otherwise? Williams says the problem wasn't just missing evidence. It was that the whole world wanted to feel like the story was over. People were tired of war. They wanted peace. They needed to believe the evil was gone. So they chose to believe the story, even if it didn't have solid proof behind it. When the Soviets took over Berlin, they were the only ones who saw the inside of Hitler's bunker. They could have found the truth. Maybe they did, but they didn't share it. At first, they said they found his body. Then they said they buried it. Then later, they said he might have gotten away. The story changed again and again. Even Stalin himself added to the confusion by saying Hitler had likely fled. And if the Soviets were so good at keeping records and finding things, why couldn't they stick to one version of the truth? Williams thinks the Soviets might have been doing it on purpose. By spreading different versions of what happened, they kept other countries guessing. That helped them during the early days of the Cold War, when the world was splitting into East and West. Maybe they knew Hitler was dead, or maybe they didn't. Either way, they didn't want to give clear answers. They only gave confusion. Even years later, when the Soviets finally let people look at what they said were Hitler's remains, those remains just brought more questions. Williams says the way the Soviets acted, changing their story, hiding the remains, and blocking outside experts, makes it very clear that they weren't telling the whole truth. Maybe they didn't know the truth themselves. Or maybe they were hiding it. Either way, something important was being kept secret. If the official narrative was so certain, why did some Soviet leaders and declassified CIA documents hint at Hitler escaping to South America even decades after the war ended? Let's learn more. The escape that might have happened. Documents that were hidden for decades from the United States also show something strange. The FBI, CIA, and other American agencies didn't just stop looking for Hitler after 1945. They kept getting reports. People kept saying they had seen someone who looked like Hitler. In fact, those reports didn't stop for a very long time. Some reports came in during the 1950s and even later. One report from 1947 said a man who looked and sounded just like Hitler was living in a small village in Argentina. He had bodyguards and lived in a hidden home far away from big cities. The village spoke mostly German and had a lot of ex-Nazis living there. Another report mentioned a place near Chile where a similar man had been seen. There were even photos taken from the air that showed large houses hidden deep in the jungle. What's even more surprising is that the FBI and CIA didn't ignore these reports. They took them seriously. They wrote them down. They followed up. They filed them in secret folders. And the head of the FBI at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, even said that unless someone found Hitler's body, they couldn't say for sure that he was dead. So why, If the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world still had doubts, was the public told everything was certain? Williams believes that these reports matter a lot. They show that even behind closed doors, even in top-secret government offices, people were still wondering the same thing. But how could someone like Hitler escape? After the war, thousands of Nazis used secret escape routes called rat lines to flee Europe. These rat lines weren't just rumors. They were real. They led through Italy and Spain, across the ocean, and into South American countries like Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. Many top Nazis used them. Adolf Eichmann, one of the worst war criminals of all time, lived in Argentina for years before he was caught. Josef Mengele, the doctor who did awful things in the camps, escaped too and was never found. They were helped by fake papers, friendly governments, and even some people in the church. These escapes weren't just one or two lucky breaks. They were organized. They had help. They had support. Some governments didn't even care, as long as these men stayed quiet. Argentina even welcomed them, hoping they would help the country grow. By the 50s, whole towns in Argentina were speaking German and living far away from the public eye. So, with all that in place, safe houses, fake names, loyal followers, why is it so hard to believe that Hitler could have escaped too? Williams says it isn't hard to believe at all. It actually makes sense. If so many others did it, and they had fewer resources than Hitler, then why not him? Why not the most important man in the Nazi Party? Why wouldn't he try to run? Why wouldn't his people help him? And in some far-off places in South America, people have been telling stories for years. Quiet stories, whispers, stories about a tall German man with a limp who spoke little and lived like a ghost. Some people said their fathers or grandfathers worked for him. Some said he was dangerous. Some called him the boss. These weren't just made-up tales. They were told to investigators like Gerrard Williams. Again and again, he traveled to those places, walked those roads, saw those homes, and he kept hearing the same thing, the same wounds, the same behavior, the same fear. It all matched. So maybe, just maybe, the story the world believed all along wasn't the truth at all. And if that's true, then everything we thought we knew needs to be questioned, slowly, carefully, and fully. If so many people disappeared, so many secrets were buried, and the full truth was never really told, then is it possible that one of those who escaped was Hitler himself? Let's find out. Secrets after the silence and what was left behind. After the war seemed to come to an end, things didn't suddenly go quiet. No, not really. Even though the gunfire had stopped and even though Hitler was said to be gone, there were still a lot of things happening. There were people moving in secret. There were files being taken. There were men in suits, sitting in rooms, whispering about what should happen next. Because the war might have been over on paper, but behind closed doors, in places nobody saw, something else had already begun. The superpowers began searching for more than just answers, particularly nations like the US and the USSR. They set out to find people, those with information, individuals who had collaborated with Hitler, those who had produced hazardous items during the conflict. These scientists, some of them brilliant, had worked on rockets, strange weapons, and other things most people didn't even understand yet. And now, instead of punishing them, the powerful countries wanted to use them. They wanted to make use of what they knew. That's when things started to get quiet. Not quiet like peace, but quiet like secrets. A lot of those scientists were secretly taken out of Germany. Some went to America, some went to Russia. They didn't wear their old uniforms anymore. They were given new names, new homes, and new jobs. In the US, a program called Operation Paperclip brought many of these men across the ocean. They had helped Hitler build war machines, but now they were building missiles for America. Some even worked on space programs. It was strange, and it was silent, and most people had no idea. While that was happening, The bunker where Hitler had stayed in those last days was being looked at. Some people had died there, but not everyone. Some had survived, some had escaped, and some were captured. These survivors didn't just go home. No, they were questioned and studied, and sometimes they were put on trial. War crimes, crimes against people, crimes that shocked the world. There were long court hearings. There were photos. There were files stacked high. There were voices trying to explain things no one could understand. And still, not every guilty person was found. Not every one of them was punished. Some ran, some hid, some changed their names. Some left Europe altogether. And in the middle of all that, people kept asking, where did they go? Why weren't they caught? How could people who did such things just vanish? But the answers didn't always come. Some were found years later. Some were never found at all. And while that went on, the world changed. The war was over. But in a way, it wasn't, because a new kind of battle had begun. A quiet one, a cold one, where countries stared at each other and built weapons just in case. The war had broken cities. It had left millions without homes. It had shaken faith and torn families apart. But even after the battles ended, the damage continued in different ways. The scars didn't go away, not from the land, not from people's minds, and the questions didn't stop either. People asked how it could happen. Why did it happen? And if something like that could ever happen again. There were museums being built, books being written, and still, not every truth came out, because there were still things hidden, still stories untold, still papers locked away in dark places. And in all of that, there was one truth people couldn't forget. Just because a war ends doesn't mean the story is over. Sometimes, the real story starts only after the fighting stops. If Hitler truly died in the bunker, why do so many pieces of the story still not add up? And why did the mystery only grow after the war ended? Let's find out. Hitler's final days in the bunker. Hugh Trevor Roper, a British officer, put a lot of effort into learning the truth about Hitler's fate at the end of the war. By April 26th, he claimed, Hitler appeared to realize he was losing. He began to lose control and crumble. Just after midnight, on April 29th, Hitler married Eva Braun. The next day, both of them took their own lives inside a private room in the bunker. Two of Hitler's helpers, Heinz Linge and Otto Gunsche, said they found the bodies. These two men's stories were used to explain what happened, but their stories were not exactly the same. That made people start to ask questions. What if something else happened? Hitler had ordered the people in the bunker to burn his body. Thus, they removed the corpses and burned them in the garden. The majority of the body was destroyed by the intense fire. There were only a few teeth and a few tiny bones remaining. Later, pieces of the burned body were discovered by Soviet soldiers. But even the Soviets told different stories. Sometimes they said they found his body and checked the teeth to make sure it was really him. But other times, they said they didn't find anything. One time, Joseph Stalin even told other leaders that maybe Hitler was still alive. The question of what actually transpired down there was raised by that. During the battle for Berlin, some of Hitler's associates managed to get away. They vanished and were never apprehended. The rumors grew stronger as a result. Hitler might have been able to escape the bunker through a secret tunnel, according to some. Others believed he might have left Germany completely. One popular idea was that Hitler escaped to Argentina. The FBI even got letters from people saying they saw someone who looked like Hitler in South America. Some even said they saw him in other countries. These stories lasted for years and never really went away. Scientists looked at the teeth that were found in Berlin and said they matched Hitler's dental records. That, they said, proved he was dead. But not everyone believed that. Some experts didn't trust the records. Others thought the records were missing pieces or not complete. When the war ended, everything was messy. Lots of documents were destroyed. Some people didn't want the truth to come out. Trials were held to punish the Nazi leaders who were still alive. Some went to jail. Others were never caught. They simply vanished. Because so much was kept secret or lost, the truth became harder to find. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the West told different stories about what happened. This made the mystery even bigger. People didn't know who to trust. Too many things didn't make sense. Most experts today still believe that Hitler died in the bunker in 1945 to meet homes. But all the strange stories, the missing pieces, and the lies that followed created a lot of doubt. Even now, some people still think he might have escaped. The truth is hard to know for sure. Some of the most important pieces of proof were lost or hidden. People still wonder if the story they were told was true or not. If Hitler's death raised so many questions, what do we really know about how he lived in those final days? And what secrets did those closest to him try to keep hidden? Let's delve deeper. The hidden life of Adolf Hitler, behind the public image. Adolf Hitler acted very differently in private than how he appeared in public. Most people only saw him through photos and videos that made him look strong and powerful, but many of those photos were carefully planned. He practiced his poses and hand movements in front of mirrors and with his team before the photos were taken. He wanted to make sure he looked in control and confident. Some photos of him practicing awkwardly were later destroyed because he didn't want the world to see him looking unsure or silly. Hitler was also very strict and hard to deal with. People who worked with him said he didn't like being challenged or corrected. He wanted people around him to agree with everything he said. If someone said something he didn't like, he would get upset. He preferred to be the only one talking, and others were expected to stay quiet. He also had odd habits. For example, he would watch the same movies over and over again, and he listened to the same songs many times in a row. These were not normal habits, and they made people around him uncomfortable. He also had many health problems. His stomach often hurt, and his heart was not strong. His eyesight was poor, and some doctors believed he might have had Parkinson's disease. Others thought he had a rare illness that made his immune system weak. His teeth were also in bad condition, which may have caused him pain often. These health problems could have made his mood worse. But even with all this, experts say he still knew what he was doing and was fully aware of his actions. Hitler also took many pills every day. His personal doctor gave him strong medicines, some of which included opiates and hormones. One of the pills even had cocaine in it. These pills were not safe and may have affected how he thought and felt. Even though he looked like a powerful leader in public, he was using pills just to feel normal in private. It's possible these pills changed his behavior and made him more unstable. Another thing that was kept quiet was Hitler's diet. He was known to be a vegetarian and did not eat meat. People who prepared his food said they never saw him eat meat. A woman who tasted his food before he did said the same thing. Even later studies of his teeth showed signs of a diet with no meat. Some people say he did this to stay healthy. Others think he may have felt guilty or had other personal reasons for eating this way. Although Hitler said he didn't care about money, he actually became very rich. His book, Mein Kampf, sold millions of copies. He made a lot of money from those sales. He also avoided paying taxes and used Nazi money like it was his own. After the war, people found out he had secret bank accounts in other countries like Switzerland. These accounts had large amounts of money in them. This shows that he lived much better than he claimed, and he enjoyed the luxury his position gave him. His past as a soldier in World War I was also changed to make him look better. He was often shown as a brave soldier who fought on the front lines. But the truth is, he worked as a messenger, which was not as dangerous. Other soldiers in his unit didn't think much of him. Some thought he was strange or unfriendly. This doesn't match the heroic story told during his time as a leader. There is also a story that Hitler once stayed in England, in a city called Liverpool, before World War I. A family member claimed he lived there for a while and painted pictures. The story says he was lazy, didn't want to work, and was hard to get along with. But most experts don't believe this story. There are no records to prove he was ever in England. Many people think the story was made up later to get attention. In the end, many parts of Hitler's private life were hidden from the public. He was sick, moody, controlling, and addicted to pills. He was also rich, but he didn't want people to know. His true past as a soldier was not as brave as the stories claimed. Behind his public image, he was a very different person. What events led Hitler to build such power? And how did those choices eventually trap him in his final moments? Let's take a closer look. Hitler's rise, breaking the treaty and building a war machine. After World War I, Germany was made to sign a peace deal called the Treaty of Versailles. This deal said Germany started the war, so they had to pay for the damage. It also took away a lot of their land and cut down their army. Many people in Germany thought this deal was very unfair. They felt ashamed, angry, and weak. They believed their leaders had failed them, and they wanted to make their country strong again. The treaty only allowed Germany to have a small army, just 100,000 soldiers. This was not enough to defend the country. Also, they weren't allowed to have troops in the Rhineland, which was an important border area next to France. The treaty also gave away German land to other countries, like Poland and Czechoslovakia. This caused even more anger. People were unhappy, and many of them had no jobs or money. Adolf Hitler used this anger to gain support. He promised to fix the economy, create jobs, and make Germany proud again. He said he would break the Treaty of Versailles and give the country back its power. Many people believed him and followed him because they were desperate for change. Hitler brought back military service, which the treaty had banned. A year later, in 1936, he sent troops into the Rhineland. This was a bold move, but the countries that had made the treaty, Britain and France, did nothing to stop him. This gave Hitler more confidence to move forward. He believed Germany needed more space to grow. He wanted to take over land in Eastern Europe, especially places with natural resources. His first big move came in 1938, when Germany took over Austria. Many Austrians agreed with the takeover, and again, no one stopped him. After Austria, Hitler looked to Czechoslovakia. He wanted a part of it called the Sudetenland because many Germans lived there. Britain and France didn't want to fight another war, so they let him take it, hoping he would stop there. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain even said they had made peace, but Hitler didn't stop. In March 1939, he took over all of Czechoslovakia. This showed he wasn't just trying to help German-speaking people, he wanted more land and power. His goal was to make Germany the most powerful country in Europe. Hitler's promises and actions were all part of a bigger plan. He wanted to undo the Treaty of Versailles, make Germany strong again, and control more land. He had already broken many promises, but no one stopped him. Step by step, he got ready for something much bigger. Hitler's promises gave people hope, but they also gave him power. As he rose, those promises turned dark. He used them to control, mislead, and destroy. That shift turned him into one of the most feared and terrible men in history. What do you think about the death of Adolf Hitler? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there, you.